The text message illuminated my phone screen at 9:15 on a Friday evening. It was from Marcus, my younger brother. "Don't even think about showing up to the barbecue this weekend. Emily said you'd just ruin the whole vibe." I simply stared at those glowing words. My chest tightened, a knot of pressure forming, as if someone had punched me in the gut. Then I watched as the small reaction icons appeared beneath his message. A laughing, crying emoji from my mother. A thumbs-up emoji from my father. They were all in agreement. They were having fun with it, right there in the family group chat, laughing at the idea of excluding me. To them, I was just Sarah, the boring sister, the weird one who worked in some lab and had no clue how to have fun. I was the family ghost. I didn't cry, didn't throw my phone across the room, didn't respond with a long, hurt paragraph detailing their casual cruelty. I typed 2 words. Understood. Then I placed my phone face down on the polished surface of my mahogany desk. I looked at the formidable stack of documents waiting for me. It was final approval for the multi-billion-dollar launch of a new medical diagnostic system. I picked up my gold-tipped fountain pen and signed my name on the signature line. Sarah Williams, Executive Vice President. My family thought I was a joke. They had no idea that I was the one secretly funding their entire lives. But they were about to find out. Before we get into the rest of the story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below what part of the world you're watching from. I remained in my executive chair for a long time after sending that message. The phone screen was black, but the words were burned into my brain. Ruin the whole vibe. It wasn't the first time they'd said something like that, not by a long shot. It wasn't even the most painful thing they'd ever said, but it was the last. Throughout my entire life, I had been cast as an extra in the production of the Williams family. I was the quiet one, the serious one. My brother, Marcus, was the star. He was sociable, charismatic, a master of charm. He could walk into a room and instantly become its gravitational center. I would enter a room, and people's eyes would simply slide past me, searching for someone more entertaining. During childhood, our dinner table was Marcus's private stage. He would regale us with stories about his soccer achievements or some prank he pulled in class. My parents, Richard and Helen, hung on his every syllable, laughing until tears streamed down their faces. If I dared to speak, the energy would shift. I'd talk about a science Olympiad or a novel I was immersed in. My mother would let out a soft sigh, poke at her salad, and murmur, "That's nice, Sarah. Marcus, can you pass the bread?" I learned to stay silent. I learned to stop expecting them to listen. When I went to college, I deliberately chose a university 4 hours away. I harbored a naive hope that distance might make them miss me. It didn't. They missed my graduation ceremony because Marcus was having a major crisis with his girlfriend of the moment. A week later, a card arrived with a check for $200 inside. They had gotten my name wrong, writing Sandra. I tore the check into tiny pieces and threw it away. After college, I invested everything I had into my career. Science was logical, physics didn't have mood swings, biology didn't play favorites. If you did the work, you got results. It was a meritocracy. My family wasn't. I started my journey at Phoenix Biopharmaceuticals as a junior researcher. The work was exhausting. I worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificing holidays and birthdays. Not that I was invited to many of them anyway. On the rare occasions when I showed up for Christmas or New Year's, the dynamic was depressingly predictable. I'd sit at the end of the table drinking water while Marcus bragged about his latest entrepreneurial fantasy. Marcus was always launching something new. There was a custom hat company, a blockchain consulting service, a boutique gym franchise. All of them imploded spectacularly, and every time my father was there to write the check. "He's a risk taker," my father would say with misplaced pride. "That takes courage." Then he'd look in my direction. "And Sarah?" "Well, Sarah is reliable. She loves her lab coat." They imagined me as a worker bee, spending my days sterilizing beakers for minimum wage. They never asked what I actually did. Never asked about the patents I was co-inventing. Never asked about the promotions. 3 years ago, I became the youngest director in the company's history. 2 years ago, I was promoted to Vice President of Innovation. Last year, I was named executive vice president. I controlled a budget larger than the GDP of a small country. I led a division with 300 of the brightest minds in science and engineering. When I spoke in boardrooms, industry titans listened. When I made a decision, the stock market reacted. But to the Williams family, I was just Sarah, the girl who couldn't get a husband, the girl who lived in a sterile apartment in the city and never came out to the suburbs to have fun. Emily, Marcus's wife, only made things worse. Marcus married her 2 years ago. Emily was undeniably beautiful, with perfect teeth, salon-perfect hair, and a smile that never reached her cold eyes. She treated me like a charity project. "Oh, Sarah," she'd say at family events, her hand on my arm, dripping with false pity. Still wearing that same gray blazer. "We simply must take you shopping. You look like a substitute teacher." My mother would laugh. "Don't waste your time, Emily. Sarah likes to look plain. It keeps the men away." They'd raise their glasses to toast Marcus's unlimited potential and Emily's impeccable taste. And I'd sit there with my mind on the board presentation I had the next morning, where I'd decide the fate of an Alzheimer's drug that could change millions of lives. I never corrected them. Why? Because a small, foolish, childish part of me wanted them to ask. I wanted them to be curious. I wanted my father to say, "Sarah, tell me about your work." I wanted my mother to say, "We're so proud of you." If I had to rub my success in their faces, it wouldn't feel real. So I stayed quiet. I let them believe I was nobody. I let them think I was barely scraping by to pay rent. I let them assume my life was a small, sad, gray existence. It was a test, a long and painful test, which they failed every single day. Marcus's message was the final straw. Don't even think about showing up to the barbecue. It wasn't about a stupid barbecue. It was about erasure. They were actively editing me out of the family portrait because I didn't match their aesthetic. I wasn't bubbly enough. I wasn't bright enough. I looked around my vast office. It was late, well past 9 p.m. The lights of Atlanta's skyline twinkled beyond my floor-to-ceiling windows. For years, I had been protecting them. I had been supporting them from the shadows, waiting for a crumb of affection. I stood up and walked to the massive window, pressing my palm against the cold, smooth glass. "Enough," I whispered into the silent room. The pain in my chest was transforming, hardening into something new. It was cold, it was heavy, it felt like steel. They didn't want me at their party. Fine. They didn't want Sarah the sister, but they had no idea they were about to meet Sarah Williams, executive vice president. I returned to my desk and finished signing the stack of papers. The launch of the new diagnostic system, Precision, was scheduled for Monday. It would revolutionize the field of medicine. My face was scheduled to be on the cover of Fortune magazine next month. My family didn't read Fortune. They read celebrity gossip sites and their Instagram feeds. I packed my things in my briefcase and turned off the lights. As I walked toward the private elevator, a strange sense of peace settled over me. The waiting was over. Hope was gone. And when hope dies, fear tends to die with it. I was no longer afraid of their rejection. I had finally accepted it. Now I was simply looking at the ledger. Debts were owed and I was coming to collect. Saturday at Phoenix Bio was typically a quiet affair, but for me it was a work day like any other. The launch of Precision was just 48 hours away. A low hum of activity from essential personnel filled the building. I arrived promptly at 7 a.m. I loved the building when it was nearly empty. It was my sanctuary, my fortress. I took the express elevator to the 50th floor. My assistant, Nina Rodriguez, was already at her desk. Nina was 24, extremely intelligent, and fiercely protective of me. She knew more about my real life than my own mother ever would. "Good morning, Dr. Williams," Nina said, handing me a steaming black coffee. "Legal sent the final versions of the press release. Marketing wants a final review with you at noon." "Thank you, Nina," I said. "Hold all my calls until 10. I need to clear this inbox." I entered my office and closed the heavy oak door. The morning disappeared in a whirlwind of focused productivity. This was my element. Here I wasn't the discarded daughter. I was in charge. I was respected. I was essential. Around 10:15 a.m., my intercom buzzed. Dr. Williams. Nina's voice had a tone of confusion. I pressed the button. Yes, Nina. There are 2 people in reception. Security just called. They say they're from your family. They say it's an emergency. I froze, my pen hovering over a contract. Did they give names? I asked, though cold certainty was already creeping in. Marcus and Emily Williams, Nina replied. They're asking for a meeting about angel investment. They're demanding to see you. They're being quite rude to the reception staff. I leaned back in my leather chair. Angel investment. Marcus was here to pitch me a proposal. He must have looked up my company name online. Probably imagined me as some mid-level employee who could put him in touch with the real decision-makers. He had no idea. Send them up, I said. Are you sure? Nina asked, her concern evident. I can have security escort them out. No, I said, cold resolve settling in. Let them come. Have security escort them to the executive wing. I stood up and adjusted the lapels of my tailored blazer. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling glass wall that overlooked my team's open workspace. I usually kept the electronic privacy blinds partially closed. Today, I opened them completely. I wanted a full audience. I sat back down behind my massive, imposing desk. I didn't pretend to work, just waited. A few minutes later, the elevator chimed. I watched through the glass as the doors opened. Emily stepped out first, squeezed into a hot pink dress too short for any corporate environment. She wore enormous sunglasses on her head and surveyed the floor with a disdainful air, as if she were evaluating a new brunch spot, not a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. Marcus followed behind her, looking rumpled in a wrinkled polo shirt and jeans. He seemed small and out of place. They walked past the rows of empty workstations, their confusion growing. The floor was a silent expanse of polished concrete and chrome. Nina stood up from her desk as they approached my door. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, Nina said with practiced professionalism. Yeah, that's us, Marcus mumbled, barely looking at her. Where's Sarah? She said she could get us in. Dr. Williams is expecting you, Nina corrected, gesturing toward my office door. Emily scoffed. Dr. Williams. Wow, she takes herself way too seriously for a lab tech. They approached my door, and Nina held it open for them. They entered. I didn't stand up, didn't offer a smile, remained perfectly still with my hands folded over the polished expanse of my desk. The office was vast. The view behind me was a stunning panorama of Atlanta's skyline and Piedmont Park. The furniture was all sleek leather and brushed steel, but what made them stop dead was the wall directly behind me. It was a frosted glass panel etched with silver letters, Sarah Williams, Executive Vice President, Phoenix Biopharmaceuticals. Emily stopped so suddenly that Marcus bumped into her. She stared at the plaque. Then her eyes ran from me to the plaque and back. Wait, Emily said, her normally confident voice now thin and weak. This is your office? Marcus's jaw was slightly open as he absorbed the room. He looked at the expensive abstract art on the walls, looked at the breathtaking view, looked at the perfectly tailored Italian suit I was wearing. Sarah, Marcus said, his voice a perplexed whisper. What is all this? Whose office is this? Mine, I said. My voice was low but cut through the air. But, Marcus stammered, Mom said you were just a researcher, in one of the back labs. Mom is wrong, I stated categorically. About many things. I gestured to the 2 low chairs positioned in front of my desk. They were designer pieces specifically chosen to make anyone sitting in them feel slightly intimidated. Sit, I said. It wasn't a request, it was a command. They sat, suddenly looking like children in the principal's office. Emily crossed and uncrossed her legs nervously, tugging at the hem of her hot pink dress. She was a garish splash of color in my office's cool, monochromatic palette. What do you want? I asked. I skipped the pleasantries. Didn't ask about their trip. Didn't ask about the barbecue. We were going straight to the point. Marcus looked at Emily, clearly expecting her to take the lead. She was the strategist. He was the figurehead. Emily cleared her throat, trying to put on her beauty queen winner smile, but it looked fragile. "Well," she began, "we had no idea you were so high up." "This is great, Sarah. Really. Keeping it all secret, huh?" I didn't respond, just kept my gaze on hers. She shifted in her chair. "Anyway, since you're obviously doing so well, this is actually perfect. It's even better than we hoped." "What is?" I asked. "The investment," Emily said, pulling from a ridiculously large designer bag a crumpled and stained folder. "Marcus and I have this new venture. It's going to be absolutely huge." I looked at the folder but made no move to take it. "You drove into the city on a Saturday to ask me for money," I stated, "the day after informing me I wasn't welcome at your house." Marcus winced and looked at his sneakers. Emily's smile faltered, but she continued. "Oh, come on," she said with a dismissive wave. "That was just family stuff. You know how it is. Don't be so dramatic. We're family." "Family?" I repeated the word like it tasted of poison. "Yes, family," Emily said, her voice firming up. "And family helps family, especially when one of them has clearly done very well." Her greedy eyes examined the office again. I could see her mentally calculating the value of the furniture, my salary. Dollar signs were practically spinning in her pupils. She thought she'd stumbled upon a hidden treasure chest. I looked at Marcus. "Is that why you're here? To beg?" Marcus's head shot up. "We're not begging. It's an investment. A startup." "What kind of startup?" I asked. "Cutting-edge wellness diagnostics," Emily said quickly. "You know, health stuff. Kind of like what you do here. We thought you could maybe have the company invest. Or maybe you could invest personally." I almost laughed out loud. The sheer absurdity of it. They knew nothing about medicine. Nothing about business. "How much?" I asked. Emily's eyes lit up. She thought I had taken the bait. $15 million, she said, for the initial round. We have the whole business plan. We just need the capital. I stared at them, letting the silence stretch, thick and suffocating. Then I leaned slightly forward. Emily smiled like a predator sensing the kill. She pushed the crumpled folder across the vast desk toward me. "It's a guaranteed winner, Sarah," she whispered. "Marcus will handle all the operations. I'll handle all the marketing. We just need the initial funding. And since you're sitting in this office, $15 million is probably just pocket change for you, right?" She winked. She actually had the audacity to wink at me. I looked at the pathetic folder. I didn't need to open it. I knew exactly what was inside. A mess of vague jargon, stolen images from other companies' websites, and wildly optimistic profit projections based on pure fantasy. It was a joke. Marcus was also leaning forward, his face a mask of desperate anxiety. "This is a real chance for us, Sarah. Dad thinks it's a fantastic idea. He said if anyone could help us get started, it would be someone at your company. Dad has never met a bad business idea he didn't love," I said coldly. "As long as he wasn't the one paying for it." Marcus's anxious expression crumbled. "Come on, don't be like that." "Be like what?" I asked. "Realistic?" I placed my hand on the folder and slowly slid it back across the desk toward them. I didn't open it. "No," I said. The word was a clean, sharp cut in the silent room. "Final." Emily's smile froze on her face. "What?" "No," I said again. "I won't invest. And Phoenix Bio certainly won't invest. You didn't even look." Emily's voice went up an octave. "You didn't even open the folder." "I don't need to," I said. "I know you, Emily, and I know Marcus. You don't have the experience, the education, or the basic discipline to run a hamster farm, much less a medical technology company. It would be the equivalent of setting fire to a pile of money." "Excuse me," Emily snapped, the mask of civility cracking. The real Emily, the bully, was emerging. "You think you're so much better than us just because you have a fancy office and a big chair. You're just a nerd, Sarah. You've always been a weird, lonely nerd." "I'm an executive," I corrected calmly. "And as an executive, I identify and reject bad investments for a living. This is a catastrophically bad investment." Marcus looked genuinely hurt. "Sarah, we need this. We're in debt. The mortgage. Things are really tight. I'm aware, I said. Maybe you should have considered that before Marcus bought a boat he never uses, or before Emily leased a Range Rover she can't afford. Emily slammed her hand hard on my desk. How dare you? You don't know anything about our lives. I know you told me I'd ruin the vibe at a family barbecue, I said, my voice dangerously low. I know you laugh at me with my own parents. I know you see me as worthless until the moment you need my money. I stood up. In my heels, I was taller than them. This meeting is over, I said. Leave. Emily jumped to her feet, her face blotchy and red. We're not going anywhere until you write us a check. We're family. You owe us this. I owe you nothing, I said. You selfish bitch, Emily screamed, the sound echoing in the pristine office. Outside the glass wall, heads turned. My entire team was now watching the drama unfold. Nina was already standing, her hand reaching for the phone. You sit there on your pile of money while your own brother is struggling, Emily screamed, pointing a manicured finger at me. You're disgusting. No wonder nobody loves you. No wonder you're completely alone. Marcus finally stood up and grabbed Emily's arm. Emily, stop. Let's go. No. She shook off his arm. She needs to hear this. She thinks she's so special, but she's nothing. She's just a walking ATM. That's all she is to anyone. I pressed the intercom button on my desk. Security, I said, my voice calm and clear. My office, now. You're calling security on your own brother? Marcus asked, his face a mask of horror. I'm calling security on 2 trespassers who are creating a disturbance in a corporate environment, I replied. Within seconds, 2 large, uniformed security guards appeared at the glass doors. They entered without knocking. Dr. Williams? One of them asked. Please escort these people out of the building, I instructed. They are not to be allowed back on the premises. Revoke their visitor credentials permanently. Yes, ma'am, the guard said, approaching Emily. Ma'am, if you could come with me? Emily stared at the guard, then looked at me, her eyes burning with pure fury. She grabbed her purse and the rejected folder from the desk. You'll regret this, Sarah, she spat. I'll make sure Mom and Dad know exactly how you treated us. You'll never be welcome at another family event. I wasn't planning on going, I said. The guard took her by the elbow. She tried to pull away but started moving toward the door. This is why nobody wants you around, she screamed as he guided her to the hallway. You're cold. You're a monster. Her voice reverberated throughout the floor. My employees watched in stunned silence. Marcus looked at me one last time before following her. The anger was gone, replaced by a look of pure panic. Sarah, he whispered, we really, really needed that money. Then you should have earned it, I replied. He turned and left, his shoulders sagging in defeat. The guards closed the door behind them, and silence returned with a vengeance. I sat down. My heart was racing, but my hands were steady as a rock. I looked at the spot on my desk where Emily had slammed her hand. There was a faint, greasy smudge. I took a tissue from the box and wiped it away carefully. I breathed deeply and steadily. It was done. I had finally drawn a line, but I had gravely underestimated their desperation. I thought the screaming was the climax. I was wrong. It was just the opening act. 10 minutes passed. I tried to focus on work again, but adrenaline was still coursing through my veins. I sipped my now cold coffee, trying to calm my nerves. Then my personal phone buzzed on the desk. I looked at the screen. A security alert from my bank. First National Bank. A credit inquiry was detected. Type, personal loan application. Amount, $2,500,000. Status, pre-approved. I frowned. I hadn't applied for a loan. I didn't need a loan. I quickly unlocked my phone and opened the bank app. And there it was. A pending application submitted just 3 minutes ago. Applicant name, Sarah Williams. Cosigner, none. I clicked on the details. The residential address listed wasn't my luxury apartment in the city. It was my parents' house in the suburbs. The contact number was an old landline from my childhood. The floor opened up beneath my feet. It felt like I was in free fall. They had my social security number. Of course they did. My mother kept all our important documents in a dusty file box in the attic. Birth certificates, old tax returns from my first job as a teenager. They were trying to take out a loan for over $2.5 million in my name. This wasn't just desperate. It was a crime. I checked the time. 10:44 a.m. They must have done this from the car. Emily probably had the application pre-filled on her phone, ready to click submit the second I said no. This was their plan B. If I wouldn't give them the money, they'd simply steal it. Blind, incandescent rage consumed me. This was no longer family drama. It was identity theft. I didn't hesitate, didn't call my parents to yell at them, didn't text Marcus demanding an explanation. I tapped the contact for David Garcia. He was my private banking manager, a man I trusted implicitly. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah, everything okay?" "It's Saturday." "David," I said, my voice pure ice. "Cancel it." "Cancel what?" "There's a loan application for $2,500,000 in my system. It's fraudulent. I didn't authorize it." David's tone shifted to full attention. "I'm on it. Give me 10 seconds." I heard the furious clicking of his keyboard. "Okay, I see it," David said. "Submit it online. Used your old profile data. Sarah, it looks like it passed the initial security questions." "Because they know the answers," I said through gritted teeth. "Mother's maiden name. First pet's name. High school mascot. It's my family, David." There was a brief pause. David knew the general outlines of my family situation. He knew why I kept my finances locked down like Fort Knox from them. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said softly. "Don't be sorry," I said. "Just cancel it." "Done," David confirmed. "I've marked it as fraudulent. The application has been denied, and I'm putting a complete freeze on your credit reports at all 3 bureaus. From now on, nobody can open a credit card in your name without a DNA sample." "Great," I said. "And David, I need the exact IP address and timestamp of the application. I want the digital footprint." "Are you going to involve the authorities?" he asked. "I'm building a case," I replied. "Just send it to me." "Sent," he said. "Take care, Sarah." I hung up. At 10:46, David's email was in my inbox. It showed the application was submitted from a mobile device. The location data pointed to my office building's garage. They hadn't even left the garage before trying to rob me. I sat there, staring at the concrete proof. I felt physically sick. I had paid off Marcus's last car loan. I had secretly bought the very house he lived in. I had tried, for so long, to be the good sister, and their response was to commit a federal crime against me. At 10:50, my phone started buzzing incessantly. Incoming call. Marcus. I ignored it. Incoming call. Marcus. I ignored it. Incoming call. Marcus. He was panicking. He must have just received the notification that the loan was denied and marked as fraud. He knew that I knew. On the 5th call, I answered. "She's hysterical, Sarah!" Marcus screamed into the phone before I could speak. He wasn't apologizing. He was attacking. "You humiliated her. First you kick us out, and now this. The bank just sent a fraud alert. Do you have any idea what that does to us?" I took a sip of my cold coffee. "I know exactly what it does," I said calmly. "It prevents you from stealing over $2 million from me." "We weren't stealing," Marcus shouted. "We were going to pay it back once the business took off. We just needed the capital." "You electronically forged my signature," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "You used my social security number without my consent. That's identity theft, Marcus. That's electronic fraud. Depending on the prosecutor, that's 5 to 20 years in federal prison." The line went absolutely silent. All I could hear was his labored breathing and Emily dramatically sobbing in the background. "You wouldn't send your own brother to prison?" he whispered. "You tried to destroy my financial life," I countered. "You didn't care if I lost my security clearance. You didn't care if I ended up with crippling debt. You only cared about what you wanted." "We're family," he screamed again, clinging to the only word he thought was a magic shield. "Not anymore," I said. "Tell Emily to stop crying. She'll need to conserve her energy." "For what?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling. For the eviction notice, I said. What? There was a moment of stunned silence. Anything else? I asked. Sarah, wait. I ended the call. I placed the phone back on the desk. My hands were shaking now. Not from fear, but from the pure, unfiltered surge of adrenaline. I had finally pulled the trigger. I had fought back, and I was just getting started. I opened my laptop. I had one more email to send. I needed to know everything about Emily. I needed to know exactly who I was fighting. I typed a short, direct message to Franco Martinez, Phoenix Bio's head of private security. He was a former FBI special agent. He could find a single grain of sand on a beach and tell its entire story. Subject: urgent background investigation. Name: Emily Williams, formerly Jenkins. Scope: complete financial, personal, and criminal history. I hit send. The war had begun, and I intended to win. That evening, the silence of my apartment felt heavy, oppressive. I spent the afternoon staring out at the city, my mind a whirlwind of legal strategies and simmering rage. I ordered food but didn't touch it, just sat waiting for the next blow. At 7 p.m., my doorman buzzed. Dr. Williams, there's a package for you. Left by a courier with no return address. Send it up, I said. A few minutes later, I was holding a thick manila envelope. It was heavy, solid, no stamps, just my name scrawled in black marker. I took it to the kitchen island, opened the top with a knife, and emptied the contents onto the cold marble. Two things fell out. The first was a thick, spiral-bound dossier with a clear cover. It looked professional, exactly the kind of report Franco's team would produce. The second was a smaller white envelope, plain, addressed by hand. I recognized the handwriting instantly. The deliberate loop of the S, the sharp angle of the W. It was from my father. My stomach clenched. Why was my father sending me a secret package? A hate letter? A preemptive lawsuit? A formal letter of disownment? I opened the white envelope first. Inside was a single sheet of letterhead. Sarah, I know what happened at your office. Marcus called us in a panic. Your mother is furious. She wanted to call the police on you for harassment. I told her to wait. Ricardo Delgado called me. He said you requested a background check on Emily. As a courtesy to me, he wanted me to know before sending the report to you. I told him to send it to me first. I read it, Sarah. I read everything. I don't have the stomach for what needs to be done. I'm an old man and just want peace. But you've always been the strong one, even when we treated you like you weren't. If you can handle this, please do. Dad. I stared at the note, my hands starting to shake. You coward, I whispered to the empty apartment. He knew. He had seen the proof of what Emily was. And instead of protecting his own son, instead of apologizing to me, he had passed the responsibility to me. He was using me as a weapon. He wanted the weird sister to clean up the family mess so he could keep his hands clean. You've always been the strong one. That line should have been a compliment. It felt like a slap in the face. He acknowledged my strength, but he'd spent a lifetime watching my mother and brother treat me like I was fragile and insignificant. He'd stood by while they mocked me. He'd even participated. And now that the wolf was in the henhouse, he was hiding behind me. I set the note aside. Cold, hard resolve solidified in my chest. Fine. If he wanted me to be the enforcer, I would be. I picked up the dossier. Subject: Emily Williams née Jenkins. Prepared by Martinez Security Solutions. I opened it. The first page was an executive summary. It was devastating. Emily wasn't just a bad influence. She was a professional predator. Previous marriage, Michael Santos, 2018-2021. Outcome: divorce filed by Mr. Santos, citing irreconcilable differences. Financial impact: Mr. Santos declared bankruptcy 3 months after the divorce. I turned the page. The details were nauseating. Emily had opened a dozen credit cards in her ex-husband's name. She had taken out fraudulent business loans for a luxury concierge service that never had a single client. She had forged his signature on a home equity loan. When Michael discovered the fraud, he was over $600,000 in debt. He lost his business, his house, everything. Emily cried in court, claiming to be an innocent spouse. She played the victim, saying Michael was controlling and forced her to sign documents she didn't understand. And the court let her walk away, leaving him in financial ruins. The next section was about Marcus. The report showed Emily was applying exactly the same con to my brother. In their 2 years of marriage, Marcus's credit score had plummeted over 200 points. There were 3 maxed-out credit cards in his name that he almost certainly didn't know existed. There was a lien on his pickup truck. And then the coup de grace. She had convinced Marcus to cash out his 401k early, incurring a massive tax penalty. The amount, just over $1 million. And where did the money go? Wire transfer to Lux Enterprises, LLC. Sole owner, Emily Jenkins. She was systematically siphoning away his entire future into a shell company. She was bleeding him dry, just like she did to Michael. I turned the pages. Photos of her extravagant shopping sprees, copies of bank statements. It was methodical. It was pure evil. My brother was a fool. Yes. He had been cruel to me. Yes. But he was being devoured by a parasite. And my father knew. He had read this same report. He knew his son was being financially destroyed and did nothing because he was afraid of my mother's reaction. He was afraid of breaking the illusion of his perfect family. I closed the folder and went to the window. The city was a glittering grid of lights. I thought about the text message. Ruin the whole vibe. They didn't want me there because I was too serious, too real. Well, reality was coming for all of them. I went back to my desk. I needed to make a phone call. I found the contact information in the report. Michael Santos. He was living in a small apartment in a town a few miles from Marcus and Emily. He worked the night shift at a distribution center. A man who once owned a thriving landscaping company was now starting over from scratch. I picked up my phone and dialed. It rang 4 times before a tired, hoarse voice answered. "Hello? Is this Michael Santos?" I asked. "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Sarah Williams," I said. "I'm Marcus Williams' sister." There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. "If you're calling to gloat about her," Michael said, his voice hardening, "you can hang up now. I don't want to hear her name." "I'm not calling to gloat," I said. "I'm calling because I'm holding a file that details exactly how she ruined your life and how she's doing the same thing to my brother right now." I heard him release a long, shaky breath. "I tried to warn him," Michael whispered. "I sent him a Facebook message before they got married. He blocked me, said I was just a jealous ex. He didn't know," I said. "She's a very good liar." "She's the devil," Michael said simply. "I'm going to stop her," I said, "but I need your help. I need you to tell your story, not to a judge or a lawyer, to my family." "Why the hell should I help you?" Michael asked. "You're a Williams. You're probably just like the rest of them. I'm the person she tried to steal $2.5 million from this morning," I said. "And I'm the only one with the resources to bury her." There was another pause. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "Meet me tomorrow," I said. "I have a plan." First, I sent an email to Michael with the location. A quiet coffee shop halfway between my downtown apartment and the suburbs. We'd meet at 7 p.m. Then I opened my laptop. It was time to use the ace I'd kept up my sleeve for 3 years. I logged into the secure portal of a holding company called SW Enterprises, LLC. SW for Sarah Williams. Nobody in my family knew it existed. 3 years ago, Marcus and Emily were house hunting. Their credit was already bad, even then. No bank would accept them. My parents couldn't co-sign. Marcus had a breakdown at the dinner table, crying about how he was a failure who couldn't provide a home for his new bride. I couldn't stand watching it. Despite everything, he was my little brother. So I bought the house. I used a company to keep my name off public records. I found a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a good neighborhood for $2 million. I paid cash. Then I hired a property management company to rent it to Marcus. I instructed the manager to offer them a special rate, explaining that the owner was a philanthropist who liked helping young couples get started. They paid $4,000 per month, Market value for that house was closer to $8,000. I was subsidizing their entire life. I paid the property taxes. I paid the insurance. I paid for the new heater last winter. They thought they were the luckiest people in the world. They never knew they were living in my house. I clicked on the property details. Owner, SW Enterprises, LLC. Tenant, Marcus Williams and Emily Williams. Contract status, month to month. They were on a month-to-month lease because they were chronically late with their subsidized rent. I had always told the property manager to be lenient, never to start eviction proceedings. That leniency was now over. I drafted a new document. Notice of lease termination for Marcus Williams and Emily Williams. Property, 142, Oak Street, Suburbs, GA. You are hereby notified that your month-to-month rental agreement is terminated. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. I stared at the words, evicting my own brother. It seemed harsh, seemed cruel. Then I remembered the fraudulent loan application. I remembered Emily screaming that nobody loved me. I remembered my father's cowardly note. I wasn't evicting them out of spite. I was evicting them because the house was my asset, and they were criminals living on my property, using my address to commit fraud against me. I printed the notice and signed it. SW Enterprises, LLC. Next, I went to my banking portal and found the auto debit I had set up for the house's utilities. I was also paying the water and electric bills. Another little perk. Status, active. I clicked cancel. Confirm cancellation. Yes. A strange sensation came over me. I felt lighter. For years, I had been carrying them, dragging their dead weight up a mountain while they kicked me in the shins. I was finally letting go of the rope. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I cleaned my apartment, organized the dossier, made 3 copies of everything. One for me, one for the police if it came to that, and one for the barbecue. At 6 p.m., I got in my car and left the city. Traffic was light. Most families were already at their holiday destinations, grilling, laughing, enjoying the start of summer. I was going to war. I pulled into the coffee shop parking lot at 6:55. Michael was already there, leaning against a dented sedan. He looked older than his years, his face marked by stress. He wore a faded work shirt. I parked my gleaming luxury SUV next to his car and got out. He looked at me, then at my clothes, then at my car. He squinted. "You don't look anything like your brother," he said. "Not at all," I replied, extending my hand. "I'm Sarah." He shook it. His grip was rough and calloused. "You bring the file?" he asked. "In the car," I said. "You bring what I asked for?" He nodded and opened his trunk. Inside was a large plastic box filled with documents. "Court records," he said, pointing. "Bank statements, the threatening messages she sent me when I finally tried to leave her. It's all there." "Great," I said. "So what's the plan?" Michael asked. "Do we just crash the party tomorrow?" "No," I said. "We're going to their house first, tonight. I want them to see you before the main event. I want them to panic." Michael actually smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a dark, satisfied smile. "I haven't seen her in 3 years," he said. "She probably thinks I'm dead or in prison. She told people I went crazy. She tells people a lot of things," I said. "Tonight, we're going to set the record straight." "Why are you really doing this?" Michael asked, his eyes searching my face. I looked at the sun setting on my car's hood. "Because they tried to steal from me," I said. "And because my father asked me to fix it." "Your father's in on this?" "My father is a bystander," I said. "I'm the one playing the game." "All right," Michael said, slamming his trunk. "Let's do this." "Follow me," I said. "I own the house they live in. We're going to pay the tenants a visit." Michael's eyebrows shot up. "You own it?" "They don't know that," I said. "But they will in about 20 minutes. I got back in my car. My heart was beating slow and steady. The trap was set. The snare was in place. Now I just needed to spring it. The drive to the suburbs took 15 minutes. The sun had set, casting long, deep shadows over the quiet suburban lawns. It was a picturesque neighborhood. Well-maintained gardens, American flags on porches, children's bicycles left on sidewalks. It was exactly the life my parents had always imagined for their golden boy. I pulled up to the curb in front of 142 Oak Street. The house looked immaculate. The rose bushes were in full bloom. A new seasonal wreath hung on the front door. Marcus's pickup was in the driveway next to Emily's leased Range Rover. I turned off the engine. Michael parked behind me. We got out. The street was quiet except for distant dog barking. "Ready?" I asked Michael. He took a deep breath, holding a thick folder of his own documents. "Yeah," he said. "I've been waiting a long time for this." We walked together up the stone walkway. I didn't knock. I pressed the doorbell and held it down. I heard hurried footsteps inside. Then Emily's voice. "I'll get it. Must be the food delivery." The door opened. Emily stood there in sweatpants and a tank top, a wine glass in her hand. She was smiling, expecting a pizza delivery guy. When she saw me, her smile evaporated. "Sarah!" she snapped, her face a mask of annoyance. "What are you doing here? Marcus said we don't—" Then her eyes shifted to the man beside me. Her face went slack. The color drained, leaving a pale, ashen gray. The wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the porch, red wine splashing on the concrete and her socks. "Mike," she whispered. His nickname, the one she used when she pretended to love him. Michael stepped forward into the porch light. "Hello, Emily," he said, his voice steady, but I could hear the years of anger humming just beneath the surface. What is he doing here?" she stammered, looking wildly from him to me. "You brought my ex-husband to my house. Are you insane?" "Who's at the door?" Marcus called from the living room. He appeared in the hallway wearing a t-shirt that said CEO in training. He saw the broken glass, saw me, and then saw Michael. Marcus froze, a look of total confusion on his face. He recognized Michael, but his brain couldn't process his presence. "Michael," Marcus said. "What the hell is going on?" "Can we come in?" I asked politely. "No!" Emily shrieked. "Get off my property." "It's not your property," I said calmly. I stepped over the broken glass and entered the foyer. Michael followed me. Emily stumbled backward. We entered the living room. A game show was blaring on the TV. "Sit down," I said. "You can't just barge in here." Marcus puffed up, trying to stand tall and play protector. "Sarah, leave now before I call the police." "Please call," I said. "I'd love to show them the electronic fraud report I have in my briefcase. It'll save them a trip." Marcus froze. The word fraud hit him like a physical blow. He looked at Emily. She was trembling. "Sit down," I repeated. They sank onto the beige sofa. The same sofa I had chosen and paid for when I furnished the place for my anonymous tenants. Michael stood near the television, a silent, imposing figure. I stood in the center of the room. "Mike," Emily whimpered. "Please, just go away. Whatever she told you is all lies." Michael threw his folder onto the coffee table, where it landed with a heavy thud. "That's my bankruptcy filing, Emily," Michael said. "Those are the credit card statements with your fraudulent charges. Those are the emails where you admitted to forging my signature on the home equity loan." Marcus stared at the folder, then reached out to grab it. "Don't touch that, Marcus," Emily screamed, lunging for his hand. "Let him read," I said. Marcus pulled his hand back. He looked at his wife with growing horror. "What is this?" he asked. "It's your future," Michael said grimly. "It's exactly the same con she's running on you right now." Marcus opened the folder and started reading. His eyes widened. "The Lux Enterprises account?" Marcus whispered, his voice failing. That's the company you said you were investing with my 401k money." "It's a shell company," Michael said. "It's her personal bank account. She bleeds you dry, moves the money there, and when you're broke, she leaves you. She keeps the money, you keep the debt." Marcus looked at Emily. "Is this true?" "No." Emily was sobbing now. Big, theatrical tears. "They're lying. They're trying to ruin us because they're jealous. Sarah is jealous of our love. I checked your credit today, Marcus." I interjected coldly. right before I canceled the fraudulent loan you applied for. Your credit score is 540. You have 3 IRS liens against you. You're drowning, and she's the anchor tied to your feet." Marcus dropped the folder. He buried his face in his hands. "Oh, God," he groaned. "My retirement fund, every penny." "Confirmed," Michael said. The room fell silent, except for Emily's performative sobs and the cheerful music from the game show. "Why are you doing this?" Emily screamed at me, her face a mess of smeared mascara. "You ruin everything. You're a miserable, lonely witch." "I'm the landlord," I said. I pulled the second document from my briefcase, the eviction notice. I placed it on the coffee table, directly over Michael's bankruptcy file. "What?" Marcus asked, looking up. "The house," I said. "I bought it 3 years ago through my holding company. I've been subsidizing your rent. I've been paying for this entire lifestyle." Emily stopped crying instantly. Her mouth fell open. "You," she whispered. "You own this house." "Every brick," I confirmed. "And you have 30 days to get out." "You can't do this," Emily shrieked. "We have tenant rights. We're family." "You're tenants," I corrected. "And you're in breach of contract for non-payment and for attempting to defraud the property owner." I looked at Marcus. He looked completely destroyed, like a child who had just learned the truth about Santa Claus. "Sarah," he whispered, You bought the house for us." "I tried to help you," I said. "I tried to give you a foundation. And in return, you spat on me. You let your wife mock me. You tried to rob me." "I didn't know," he cried, tears now streaming down his face. "I didn't know it was you." "You never asked," I said. "You never asked me a single thing about my life. 30 days. If you're not out by the end of next month, the sheriff will remove you." "Where are we supposed to go?" Marcus wailed. "We don't have any money." "That," I said, "is a question for your wife. She seems to be an expert at making money disappear. Maybe she knows how to find some." I signaled to Michael. "We're done here." We headed out, leaving them in the ruins. Emily was screaming behind us. "You can't do this! I'll sue you! I'll tell Mom!" Marcus didn't say another word. He just sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of his life. We stepped out into the fresh night air. Michael looked at me, and I saw a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you," I replied. "See you tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," I said. "The barbecue. We have one more presentation to make to the board of directors." Michael smiled. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Memorial Day. Monday, 2 p.m. The sky was brilliant blue and cloudless. The air was thick with the smell of charcoal and sunscreen. My parents' backyard was bustling. Cars lined the street. They had invited everyone, neighbors, distant cousins, friends from church. It was the Williams family's social event of the season. I parked my car at the end of the street, not wanting to get trapped. I walked up the driveway, carrying a slim black leather briefcase. I wore an elegant navy suit. Everyone else was in shorts and flip-flops. I looked like a funeral director arriving at a pool party. The cheerful music faltered and died when I entered the backyard. My mother, holding a tray of deviled eggs, froze mid-step. My father, stationed at the grill, looked up, his face pale. The guests' chatter turned to uncomfortable silence. Everyone felt the shift in atmosphere. "Sarah," my mother said, her voice tense. We didn't think you'd come." Marcus said many things," I announced, my voice projecting clearly across the yard. I walked past the coolers of drinks, past the kiddie pool, and went straight to the main patio table where Marcus and Emily sat. They looked like ghosts, sleepless, haunted. Marcus's eyes were red and irritated. Emily hid behind enormous sunglasses. "What are you doing here?" Emily hissed. "Haven't you done enough?" "I'm here to finish what I started," I said. I turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, you told me not to come because I ruined the vibe. You laughed about it." My mother's face turned crimson. "Oh, Sarah, that was just silly family teasing. Don't be so dramatic." "It wasn't teasing," I said. "It was the truth. I don't belong here. And today I'm going to show all of you why. I opened my briefcase and removed the fraud report, the eviction notice, and the background check. I placed them on the table right next to the potato salad. Dad, I said, looking directly into his eyes, you sent me this note on Saturday. You told me you knew Emily was a professional con artist. You told me to handle it. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. My mother dropped the tray of deviled eggs. They splattered on the patio stones. Richard, my mother said, turning to my father. What is she talking about? My father stared at the grill, unable to meet her eyes, unable to meet mine. I had suspicions, he mumbled. Suspicions? I said loudly. You had a 50-page dossier. You had proof. You knew she was robbing your son blind and were too cowardly to do anything about it. I pointed to the papers. Emily stole all of Marcus's 401k, I announced to the stunned party guests. She destroyed his credit and tried to commit bank fraud in my name. Liar! Emily shrieked, jumping to her feet. She's lying. She's crazy. Is she? I looked toward the side gate. Right on cue, Michael entered. The crowd parted for him. He was clean-shaven, dressed in an impeccable button-down shirt. Emily made a sound like a small, wounded animal. Michael, my mother whispered. That's her ex-husband. Mrs. Williams, Michael said politely. Sorry to interrupt. He walked to the table. Tell them, Michael, I said. She did exactly the same thing to me, Michael said, his voice clear and firm. She invented a fake business, stole my life savings, and left me completely bankrupt. She's doing it to your son right now. Marcus stood up, his legs shaky. It's true, he said quietly. Marcus? Emily grabbed his arm. Don't listen to them. It's true, Mom, Marcus said, finally looking at our mother. The money's gone, all of it, and Sarah owns our house. What? My mother's head whipped toward me. You own their house? I bought it to help them, I said. And 2 days ago, I evicted them. Evicted? My mother shrieked. Sarah, that's your brother. How could you? Because he and his wife tried to steal $500,000 from me Saturday morning, I said. The silence in the backyard was absolute. The only sound was the sizzle of forgotten burgers burning on the grill. Is this true? My father asked, finally looking up. Marcus felt fresh tears streaming down his face. Emily said, she said Sarah wouldn't even notice. She said we deserved the money. My father looked at Emily. For the first time I'd ever seen, he looked at her with pure, undiluted disgust. You tried to steal from my daughter? He asked. She has plenty, Emily screamed. She's rich. She never shares. She's a selfish, petty bitch. Out, my father said, his voice low and shaky. What? Emily blinked. Out of my backyard, my father repeated, pointing his spatula toward the gate. Both of you, out. Dad, Marcus whimpered. You too, Marcus, my father said, his voice choked. You let this happen. You tried to steal from your sister, the same sister who secretly put a roof over your head. But we have nowhere to go, Marcus cried. Figure it out, my father said. I looked at Emily. The police have a copy of the file, by the way, I added. Franco sent it this morning. Maybe you should spend less time crying and more time calling a lawyer. Emily stared at me with an expression of pure, concentrated hatred, but she knew she had lost. She grabbed her purse and marched toward the gate. The crowd of neighbors and friends parted like the Red Sea, their faces a mixture of shock and judgment. Marcus stood there for a moment, looking from our mother to our father. Nobody moved to hug him. Nobody offered a word of comfort. He hung his head and followed his wife to the street. When the gate closed, the silence remained. I looked at my parents. I hope the party gets better now, I said. I closed my briefcase. Sarah, my mother said, approaching me. Wait, we didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. I turned to Michael. Ready to go? Lunch is on me. Steak, Michael said. I want an expensive steak. Done, I said. I left the backyard. I didn't look back. I left all of them there with their burned burgers, their spilled eggs, and the ugly truth they'd spent years trying to ignore. 3 months later, August. The oppressive summer heat was finally starting to give way. The air carried the first crisp promise of fall. I was sitting in my office at Phoenix Bio. The launch of the precision system had been a monumental success. Our stock had risen 40%. The board had just approved a bonus package for me that was frankly obscene. Nina came in. "Dr. Williams, a personal letter for you." She handed me a plain white envelope. I recognized the handwriting. It was from my father. I hadn't spoken to them since the barbecue. I had blocked their numbers and set up an email filter. I opened the letter. "Sarah, I hope this letter finds you well. I see your company in the business news. We are proud. I wanted to give you an update. The foreclosure on Marcus's house was completed. I know you sold it. I hope you made a good profit. Emily is facing 3 civil lawsuits. The bank, credit card companies, and Michael Santos are all suing her. The district attorney is investigating the identity theft charges you filed. It doesn't look good for her. Marcus filed for divorce last month. He's a broken man, Sarah. He lost his job. He's living on our couch, crying all the time. We had to sell the boat to help pay his initial legal expenses. Your mother went back to work part-time at the public library to help supplement our income. It's so quiet here now. Too quiet. Don't you ever feel guilty? I know we weren't a perfect family, but we were a family. Now it's all in pieces. Was it worth it? With love, Dad." I read the letter twice. Don't you ever feel guilty? He still didn't get it. He still thought I was responsible for tearing the family apart. He couldn't see that the family was already broken beyond repair. I was just the one who turned on the lights so everyone could see the cracks. He wanted me to feel remorse. He wanted me to fix it. He wanted me to open my checkbook again. I took out a sheet of my heavy, personalized letterhead. I picked up my fountain pen. "Dad, I don't feel guilty. Sometimes, to protect a body, you have to cut out the cancer before it spreads and kills the host. I saved you from Emily. I saved Marcus from a lifetime of debt and ruin. Even if the treatment was painful, I didn't tear the family apart. I just stopped holding the broken pieces together. I hope Marcus finds his way, but he'll have to do it on his own, just like I did. Please don't write again. Sarah." I sealed the envelope. "Nina," I called. "Yes, Dr. Williams? Send this for me, please. And then order our Thai lunch, extra spicy." I swiveled my chair to face the window. The city stretched out before me, infinite and bright. I thought about Marcus sleeping on the couch, in the same living room where I had once been invisible. I thought about my mother shelving books in the quiet library. I thought about my father grilling for one in a silent backyard. They were all living with the consequences of their choices, and I was living with mine. I took a deep breath. The air in my office was cool and clean. It was quiet, but it wasn't the silence of being ignored. It was the silence of hard-won peace. I smiled to myself, picked up my pen, and got back to work.